Hi, folks. My name is Trent Theroux, and I am the author of Eat Your Broccoli First Practical Proverbs for Developing Resilient Leaders. And the best advice I received was in my first job. It's have a process or prepare to fail.
Ooh, have a process or prepare to fail. What were you doing? Were you in sales or what were you
It
doing?
was, it was I was the most vital person at that restaurant, the Lobster Pot in Bristol, Rhode Island. I was the dishwasher. And,
Okay.
and I, got
Oh,
to,
tell me about this.
I got there about an hour early. It was my first job, and I decided that I should be on the hour early before work schedule, but I think I was the only one that knew about that. And so I arrived early, and Mr. McCarthy, who owned it, showed me the ropes about how to start washing dishes. But he said to me the exact thing: have a process or prepare to fail. And at 16 years old, I didn't know what that meant. But what was great about washing dishes at that time was that I could have all the Cokes that I wanted. Just go to the bartender, put my Coke on it. So got it going in. Maybe about an hour and a half or so into my shift there, the first two dishes came. And so I dutifully jumped right on them, scrubbed them down, put them in the machine, closed it, pressed the steamer, and out they came. Now I should say to you that this restaurant had 14 different types of plates for coleslaw and butter and bread and salads and lobster and non-lobster and meat dishes, plus appetizers and desserts and the like. And as the plates started to build up, I couldn't quite figure it out because I thought I needed some level of PhD in Tetris to figure out how to get all of these things moving. And I could hear Edna. Now, Edna had all the charm of a mosquito carrying malaria. And she's like, "We're running out of lobster plates." And I was getting nervous because I couldn't keep up. And I looked behind Edna and she had this big stack of plates. I said, "Why don't we use those?" And she goes, "Those are for emergencies." I go, "This is an emergency. Call out the National Guard of plates. We need them now." At which point, Mr. McCarthy came over and said, "You didn't listen to me, did you?" He says, "You didn't have a process." And he showed me how to organize the work. And once he showed me how to organize the work, it was very easy to go through from there. So it's something that I've taken to every job I've had since. Don't start working, start by figuring out the process first.
That's interesting. I mentioned that I thought it was sales because a lot of times we teach the sales process first, and the folks that I work with. So that's interesting. Even washing dishes, and I think back to my first job. That was one of my first jobs too. And absolutely, right. Bob and Mary taught me my process.
Mm-hmm.
And that was key, right? Figure out the process, work the process. Certainly it can be improved upon
Sure.
sometimes. And sometimes it's just about working it. So that's super cool, man. So with that, is that kind of the thought behind Eat Your Broccoli First? Did you have a process for writing this book or what?
Absolutely. So eating your broccoli first is a practical proverb. When I used to teach graduate school, business strategy and finance. And what I would find is that those textbooks would spend 4 pages talking about um, differentiation and using risk and the like. And what they were simply saying was, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I'm thinking, boy, we have all this calculus to figure this very simple proverb out that every mother since the beginning of time has told us. But yet we try to make some leadership tips just so hard. And that's where I said to myself, okay, there's an easier way to do this. There are people that are working their way through leadership because we get sales training, we get dishwasher training, but very little leadership training. And so I wanted to make my book to have very simple proverbs that you can stick with you and then you'll be able to apply in your daily life.
Yeah, I love that. I love practical tips. They're so important. I think that often we overlook the practical with, oh, I'm looking for some magic or some silver bullet. When in
Sure.
reality, we just need one little process here and one little process here that can certainly help us out. So with that, let's talk about some of your proverbs, which by the way, they're super fun. Let's talk about soaking the bun, which I found
Okay.
super interesting. Let's talk about that one.
Sure, sure. So the concept behind soaking the bun starts with creating a different way, a different paradigm to how to solve a problem. And it starts with the Nathan's 4th of July hot dog eating contest. Now, I don't know how many hot dogs you can eat at one sitting. I might be able to get 2, maybe 3 down if I wash it down with a good beer. But beyond that, not too much. But these people take it as a sport. And so they were getting to 15 and 20 hot dogs, and these big burly guys coming out and just mowing it down. But this young man from Japan thought about it and reversed engineered the process. The problem with the process is the starch in the bun. You had to eat both your bun and the hot dog at the same time. And that's what people would do. That's what we would do at a cookout, right? But this gentleman, Kobayashi, thought about it differently. Separate the bun from the hot dog. Put the bun in the water, squeeze it. And what you're doing is you're taking out a lot of the yeast there, the problem that people have in swallowing. And so he took this competitive event, but yet by soaking the bun, applied a scientific process to it, and he doubled the output that year. And I should say this, Kobayashi at the time was 147 pounds, and he ate 52 hot dogs. I can't conceive of that.
Wow. So how do we apply that to our daily life, right? How
So
do we apply that to our leadership life?
Yeah, the way I think about that is so often we walk and do our job and we follow a routine. We eat our hot dogs where we've always eaten our hot dogs. But this gentleman, Kobayashi, said, we're not thinking about it the right way. And he went at a 45-degree angle to say, there are 2 problems to solve here. One is getting the hot dog down, but the bun is separate as opposed to thinking them together. And so when we're working in our jobs, quite often we go down the exact same road that's been plowed for us over years. And very rarely do we just stop, come in at a 45-degree angle and say, is there a better way to do it? And that's what Kobayashi did. And he just changed the paradigm shift of how that competition is now fought.
Wow. So looking at the same problem but from a different angle is going to let us find maybe a more efficient solution, maybe more effective solution, but definitely will help us find a different solution. So so if we think about that, right, and we think about how you explain that in our work, what gets in the way other than the old way of doing it? Like what gets in the way of testing that out and actually making that happen, Trent?
So I think in my experience, the first is you have to have somebody that has some passion for it, because I think we will find that a large percentage of people in the workforce are comfortable just following a routine. We all do. Let me ask you a question, Phil. How do you brush your teeth? Do you change it up very often? No, not really. Okay. And not that it's wrong, right? And not that it's wrong, but we have a routine. We are creatures of habit. But there are items within whether it be a manufacturing process or a sales process or some other automated way we can automate, that we have to look at things a little bit differently. It's very easy to do the exact same thing over and over. It's very hard to look at something different and expect a different outcome.
Wow. So with that, how did you how did you come upon the fact that you want to do things differently? I mean, give us a little bit about your backstory that helps you be resilient and look at things differently.
Well, I'd be happy to. I had something changed in me 20 years ago. I was in an accident that left me paralyzed. Now, you may be able to see it here, but I can now stand. But I was paralyzed in an accident, and it changed the dynamic of my life. It changed how I had to think about things going forward. And so it gave me this insight that the path that I'm following now isn't always right. 2 paths diverged in the woods, and I took the one lesser traveled, and it has made all the difference. And that's what I've thought about since that accident.
Wow. Was it near death? I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about that, Trent?
It was a Monday night, and I was coming home from work. It was about 8:30 at night. I had a long day, and I normally like to get a workout in a day, and I couldn't that morning. And so when I came home, I live right by this cove in this Narragansett Bay in Rhode Island. So I went out for a quick kayak. It was September 23rd. It was a full moon, and the air was still sweet with a little bit of summer taste to it. And I went out kayaking. And I went out to Nayet Point. I turned around and came back. The only boat I saw out there is there's a high-speed ferry that goes from Providence to Newport, and I could see that go by. But I heard behind me another boat in the water. And so as I'm kayaking, I've looked back and I can see a boat behind me, and I kind of steered away a little bit from it and kept going. And the boat still kept coming at me. And it was on my trajectory up on plane. And so I took the kayak and paddle, and I reached behind me. I yelled, "Hey, hey!" And the boat didn't move. It was bearing down right on me. And so I had to make a choice. I knew if the boat hit me in here, I would die. And so I rolled out of the kayak, and I said the best thing I could probably do is go under the boat. If I can get under the boat, boat goes right by me, and then I'll pop back up. And so I roll out of the kayak, and I try to push on the kayak, which is like pushing on air. And I get into the water, and I take one big breaststroke pull. And I come to appreciate the Doppler effect. As the engine gets closer to me, the pitch goes higher. And then the boat hits me. And getting hit by a boat is like being tackled in football. Like, oof, it knocks the wind right out of you. And then the propellers came. And the propellers got me 4 times from right at my bottom of my waist up to the top of my back, and sent me straight down into the water, into the dark water. And I didn't know which way was up at this point. I tried to breathe a little out, but I couldn't see the bubbles. And I realized I couldn't use my left hand, and I couldn't move my legs. So I had just my right hand, and I pulled myself to the surface with my one hand. And I see the boat, and I watch it going away. And I think, I am in some serious trouble here. And I reach behind me, and I touch what I think is an exposed rib. And it just sends shocks to me. And I have no way to keep up. So I fall back in the water a little bit, and I pull myself back up. But that, Phil, isn't what scared me, because what scared me the most is I didn't know how much blood I was losing. It was dark. I couldn't see it. And I looked, and about 400 yards to the east was the shoreline with a lot of really nice houses right on the waterfront there. And I was a swimmer in college. So back then, 400 yards would have been like 4 minutes. But now with one hand, I'm not quite sure how long that'll take me. And the thought that came across me was, my children are going to learn about this on the news tomorrow morning. Or they're going to see this on TV, that a man found in the water. So I start paddling. And then the boat up further north of me stops, parks. So I park and wait. And the boat turns, but the boat doesn't turn towards me. It kind of turns the other way, but still coming back down the bay. And it's going slow. It's trolling. It's looking for something. And so now I have a decision to make. I can continue to swim to the shore, but I think, what if I get to the shore and the house I get to and I crawl to and nobody's home? Or I can go deeper into the bay, and what if they don't find me? And there are times in your life, and I hope it never happens, but you know that this is the decision that is the difference in whether you live or die. And so I decide the best course for me is to go towards the boat. So I change direction, and I start going towards the boat pulling towards them. And the boat comes, and the boat goes right by me. And I think, I am in serious trouble. So now I'm deeper in the bay, I'm bleeding out, and my strength is draining. And so I start following the boat with one arm, pulling myself towards the boat. And what I'm really scared of is that they'll find the kayak, which is nowhere near me. I can't see it. And after a couple minutes, the boat turned around and came back up towards me. And ultimately, they see me. And that's how I ended up in the hospital with all the major muscles on the left side of my back severed and 5 pieces of my spine carved out. And so we have these defining moments of how we're going to change. And it was that point that I started on a different journey, that I went on a journey opposed to self-growth, to be able to try to help other people grow. And that's what I've done with my different books and my different speakings, is to try to help develop resilient leaders. So that's some of my backstory.
Wow. That's a hell of a story, man. That's a hell of a story. So, well, I'm glad you can swim. That's man, right? That's pretty awesome, dude.
Very, for as badly as everything went, I'm very fortunate that everything worked out right. And it took me a year rehab to get back to swimming, to standing again. But fortunately, I am now.
Wow. So good. I'm so glad you're here, though. Holy
I
crap, dude.
couldn't imagine it being
stories, right?
I couldn't imagine being in a better spot.
So, oh, Trent, you're funny, man. So with that, right? So much in the book. So I'm going to ask about one more, and then I'm going to ask you to share one maybe that I didn't ask you to share about, and that is one that kind of it challenged my thinking because it wasn't what I expected, and that is, instead of trust the truth, you said test the truth. Talk to me about that one, because that one was like, what's he doing here? And by the time I got to the end of the little section there, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So talk to me about that one, about test the truth.
So in testing, most of the times we find ourselves accepting people and what they say. There's a study called the truth default theory, TDT, which just happens to be my initials as well. And it's a common human default to accept what people tell us. Because, Phil, why would you lie to me? Right? Why would you try to deceive me? And in general nature, that's what we do. We want to accept the best in people. We want to accept people's intentions. But every now and then, we have to test it. And I had this employee that was telling me these great sales techniques and numbers that he was delivering. And it sounded great. And I trusted it, because why would he lie to me? Until the moment when I found that he was lying to me. But this truth default theory would essentially mean we accept it. And the study came from the early 1960s. And what was happening was there was people were being put in one room, and you were in charge of applying shocks to a person in another room. And the person that's telling you to do it, if they give me a bad answer, you apply a little more shock to them. And it become harmful, because the people that are applying the shocks accept that this person in a laboratory coat is on the up and up on what they're doing. Now, on the other side of the room is an actor. So they're not really wired up, but every time you turn up the juice on them, they're screaming bloody murder. And it created this interesting dynamic as to how far people would go based on just accepting the truth as it's told to them rather than testing it. And I say there gets to be a point where you have to test a little bit. Reagan was right. Trust but verify. That's essentially where we're going here. And I am an exceptionally trusting person. I have no reason to believe that people would seek to not deceive me, but manipulate me. Sometimes we need to test that out just a little bit. That's where I came from that.
So how do we do that practically, right? You mentioned the salesperson. How did you test that?
Well,
How did you find out that they weren't doing it right?
the salesperson was selling a product, and the sales were going up, and the product was going out, but we weren't collecting much money in. They were aging. Accounts receivable were going too high. And so what we on one day we had this interesting call from our credit card company, into which said somebody is trying to put money back onto their card from our company device. We had a device that would you could swipe or put the numbers in to charge people. But instead of the money coming to us, we got a call because the money was trying to go out. And I couldn't understand it. So I went to this person. He was the only person logically that could have been near this machine. And he told me exactly what I wanted to hear. Oh, that customer was ready to pay. And I needed to check his credit card to see if it worked. And so again, I trusted him. Why, in a way, why I wouldn't. But then one more shoe dropped after that. And I found something photoshopped on what came from that customer. And it was enough of a trail. And once I unscratched it, then I went and took him to. And I should say, I followed that out, found him for wire fraud, brought in the Secret Service, put him away on wire fraud charges for 6 years. So I was pretty trusting.
Wow. Holy cow. That's a good lesson and a good reminder to your point, right? Trust but verify for sure, and test the truth. So that's good. So if there was one more maybe that I didn't ask about, one of your favorites that like maybe has been defining for you, what would that be, Trent?
I One of my favorites that I enjoyed writing, and I struggle, but I work hard to live by it, is called Trust Your Caddy. And the basic story was that I was playing in a golf tournament in Scotland, and I had a nice young Scottish guy as my caddy. And we're on the back nine last day, and I was down three with 6 holes to play. So I needed to make a charge. And I hit a ball into this fescue. And on the fescue there, it's like hip high. It's like the stuff Sandy Duncan would do wheat thins commercials in. I mean, it's high stuff, right? And so I have almost 200 yards to the green. So I say to my caddy, Caleb, give me the 3-wood. I have to go get there. And he's like, you don't want to do that. I'm like, no, it's the back nine, 6 holes to go, down three. I need to get to the green now. I can't take worse than bogey. And he's like, no. I said, Caleb, give me the 3-wood. And so he dutifully does. Takes the bag, takes his step back. I go down, I take my swing, and my club goes right under the ball. And I look up at Caleb, and Caleb was standing there holding the club he wanted me to use the whole time. Like, give me that. And I punched out, put it near the green, and made double bogey, and ended up losing the tournament. And I thought to myself afterwards, what made me think I knew more about that fescue than he? Am I a better golfer than him? No. Do I know the course better? No. Do I know the conditions better? No. But yet, why wouldn't I trust my caddy who had all this experience? And so what I find sometimes is that we have experts, but we have this implicit belief in ourselves that we know more for some reason. We know more than our accountant, and we know more than our lawyer, and we know more than our wives, and and we don't trust some of the experts that we actually bring in to help us. And so, trust your caddy is a simple, practical proverb for hire an expert for their expertise and use their knowledge.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful reminder, man. Good stuff. So lots of wonderful practical proverbs in the book, and eat your broccoli first. But as we wrap up here, I want to talk a little bit about your podcast here, man.
Okay,
Swimming in the flood. Talk
sure.
to me about that, right? What's your podcast all about? I did not get a chance to listen, so I'm curious. What is your podcast all about?
My podcast is 10 minutes a week, and there's no guests. But in there, you will get a behavioral science or an economic theory. you'll get an empirical analysis of one business or a company, and then a mildly, at least I think, humorous personal anecdote to tie it together. And you'll walk away with a theory that you can apply. So this week, I'll give it to you about don't rush to conclusions is going to be about how I used to listen to my Walkman and listen to Rush, the band, to tune out my parents. And I was on stage recently and I saw a young man with headphones while I'm on stage, bopping to his headphones the same way I would have to Rush. I mean, modern day warrior, mean, I would block my parents out. And I was mad that this person in the audience was listening to their headphones while I was talking. And I went to the organizer not far afterwards, and she was giving me, oh, you did a great job. And the audience was so happy with it. I got positive feedback. And I go, yeah, but there's one thing. So there's this guy in the 7th row that was wearing these headphones. And he goes, oh, that's Derek. I go, Derek, you know him? She goes, yeah, he has a hearing problem. He can't hear well in cavernous areas. So he has an app on his phone that relays it back to his ears. And I rushed to the wrong conclusion there. I wrote to Derek and I asked him, I understand you were in the audience. I hope you had a good time. Is there anything I didn't communicate well to you? And he said to me, no, I heard you perfectly. I was like, wow, all right. So that's this week's. So we're going to talk about, and the week we'll talk about multi-generational understanding, between me, a Gen X, and him, a Gen Z, what's acceptable, and we'll tie it into another company and the personal anecdote. So that's what we do in the podcast. In 10 minutes, you can get yourself a nice little daily dose, a weekly dose, and have a little fun at the same time.
Wow. I'll be subscribing. Swimming in the Flood. Good stuff. And the book is Eat Your Broccoli First.
Yes.
You can check that out at Trent's website. That's TrentTheroux.
You can go to Amazon. You can go to Amazon. It's the best place to go find it.
There you go. You can get it on Amazon, and you can learn more about Trent. Trent, my friend, thank you so much for spending time with us today. How do we eat the broccoli first every day? How do we make sure we do that? Give us one last insight.
I say it starts by actually trying. We follow our routines every day. Sometime when you go out to walk your dog, instead of going right to tomorrow, go left. And that's how you eat your broccoli first.
Love it. Good stuff. Thank you so much, my friend.